Pensioners are demanding the government act to reduce the deeming rate after successive interest rate cuts. The government is expected to make a move on the deeming rate imminently, but seems less open to putting an independent body in charge. Live to political reporter James O'Doherty for more on this. James, no rest for the government. Yes, it got its tax cuts passed, of course, but pensioners are saying, well, it's not going to help us much.
The government got its tax cuts passed last week, Tom, but as you say, pensioners are now calling on the government to move on the deeming rate, something we're expecting the government to do in the coming days. This has been labelled a pensioner tax by stealth. Of course, the deeming rate is the rate at which the government deems pensioners to be earning returns on their assets. However, with the interest rate now at record lows, the deeming rate being above the interest rate means they're not earning as much as the government thinks they're earning. This has led to calls for the deeming rate to be reduced, something that Josh Frydenberg says the Minister Anne Ruston will take to the ERC.
Not all pensioners are affected by deeming rates, about a quarter of the pensioners are. And secondly, the deeming rates apply to a suite of financial assets, not just money that is in a bank account. It also applies to returns from superannuation funds or from shareholdings or managed funds. And some of those returns have obviously been stronger than what we've seen at a time of low interest rates from bank deposits.
So Josh Frydenberg talking down the impact of this high deeming rate, although the government is expected to act. Less keen, though, it seems, Tom, to follow a recommendation to put an independent body in charge of calculating the deeming rate, something that Linda Burney has suggested could be an option.
The government going forward needs to consider whether or not an independent body is appropriate. My position is that, sure, you should consider it, but it is the government's decision.
We'll see what the government does there. It could happen pretty soon and pretty easily, James. Less easy would be any reform on industrial relations.
Indeed, the government wants business to do the hard yards on this, but the Prime Minister is saying that business needs to bring the public along to get it on board with any proposed changes to industrial relations. That seems to be what business is doing today, writing to the government to suggest their wish list of changes on the agenda in the industrial relations space. On that wish list from the Australian Industry Group is the passage of the Ensuring Integrity Bill to crack down on unionists with criminal pasts, also changing and clarifying the definition of a casual employee, changes to enterprise agreements and more transparency about workers' entitlement funds. Most contentiously, a review to unfair dismissal laws to give more power to bosses to sack rogue employees. The government is moving very carefully on this, Tom. It knows that it's in politically dangerous territory.
We've got those foundational principles, which is we want to see workers protected. We want to see it being evidence-based. We want to see that there'll be improvements through any changes that might be proposed. So we're taking a very cautious and objective approach here.
This is a government that is obsessed with further undermining workers' entitlements. That's its agenda. They don't like trade unions. They don't like organised labour. Now, we've just spoken about freedom of the press. Another essential freedom in a democracy is freedom of labour to organise.
Now, we know that the government wants to pass its Ensuring Integrity Bill. Any reforms on top of that, well, Christian Porter is looking at them, but it would be a while before we probably see that put to Parliament, Tom.